Hi, my name is Melanie McDonald, and I would like to help you collect your outstanding accounts receivable. In today's video, we're up to step 4 of John Kotter's change management model, and this step discusses communicating the change as often as possible. So what does that mean with regards to this change of your vision of your accounts receivable, meaning that you have a vision now for your accounts receivable? That was in our last video. And you probably didn't have a vision before, so that's new. And now you've got a strategy for it, which probably you didn't have before. You probably had tactics and reminders and so forth. So these are new things. And so what does it mean to communicate the change often? And who are you communicating it to? You might think, well, listen, my team that I've assembled to work on it, they know, and that's really enough. And while it is important for them to know, naturally, because they're helping you, but the scope of what John Kotter is talking about is really much broader. And so we're going to talk today about stakeholders and how to include them in this communication and how it will strengthen what you're doing. So the word stakeholder is one that's been around for a little while now in business. And what does it mean? A stakeholder is anyone who is engaged or interacts with your organization in any way. So the obvious answers are your customers, your employees, your board, your vendors. And let's go through each of these groups and talk about what you would say to them, why or even talk to them about this issue, and how can it just be good and not weird, and what it's going to do for the whole process. So we're going to go one at a time through the stakeholders, and you're going to hopefully understand the richness that you're bringing to your strategy and your vision and how it's going to support the entire effort. So let's start first of all with employees. So I've talked about in other episodes how your employees who are working on this, from the person who's making the detective call to see what's going on, throughout the group, the salespeople and so forth, it can really be fun and exciting for them as they see the money start to come in. So for them to have an ongoing communication, hey, we had this strategy, we're executing it, and here's how much has come in because of it. We're really excited about it. That keeps the whole team fired up and continuing to think about and work on what other improvements can we make to our process? What tweaking should we do? And it keeps the whole process alive with them and allows you to reap ongoing benefits of their thought processes and their problem-solving capabilities. Because it's not a one-off meeting that then just dies, or a one-off meeting and then things have been implemented, but no one knows what's going on, so why should they even continue to think about it? You're not getting the best out of them in a once-off. The best work is going to come with sustained effort where results can be evaluated, and then people say, oh, that kind of worked. What if we did this? How much better would that work? And so that sustained effort is much richer. And the only way to have sustained effort is to continue to communicate about what's actually happening. So the communication with at least that group of employees is extremely important. Let's talk about communication to the broader group of employees. I'm going to suggest that your strategy for accounts receivable should be part of your larger strategic planning. At least a sort of shorthand summary version of it should be there. And what that gets you is, for employees who take the time to read your strategic plan, they feel, hey, you know what? I could still have a job here next year because they're going to make sure they're getting paid. You're helping your employees feel confident in your leadership when you talk about things, really everyone can understand. Everyone understands if we run out of money, we can't continue to be in business. So this is a very solid thing to add to your strategic plan. It doesn't alarm people. It in fact does the opposite. It makes people feel confident in the leadership of the organization. So that would be the broader group of employees I would share the information with. Another group of stakeholders would be vendors. Now, you may say, well, I'm not going to tell my office supplier that I'm collecting my accounts receivable differently now. Fair. The vendor I'm in particular wanting you to share the information with is your banker. So having an excellent banking relationship is critically important to any ongoing business. So letting your banker know that as part of your ongoing strategic planning, or however you want to put it, whenever you meet with them, I don't know if you meet quarterly or what have you, you can say, we're going to pay particular attention to this over this time period. Here's our vision, here's our strategy, and you'll find that your banker will be very pleased that you're paying extra attention to this area. They know that so many businesses go under due to poor accounts receivable, and that will only strengthen your relationship with them. Another vendor that you should share the information with would be your accounting firm, either one that does audits for you or one you work with on a regular basis. You need to let them know what your vision and strategy are. Now, my experience with many of them is that they will think, this is what I've experienced, that's just over the top. You could just send out your statements, your reminders, and it's fine. Your receivables aren't that bad. We've seen many worse. I don't know why they often minimize until it's like crisis. We don't want crisis. We want to head that off before we get there. But I think part of it is that many accounting firms don't have a management mindset. They have an accounting mindset. And that's very different than a management mindset. So to them, with all of the customers they have, with all the receivables they see, they may feel, you know what, there are no red flags there. But for you as an owner or as a CEO, you are prioritizing this. You're saying, this isn't what I want. I want to feel confident. I don't want to be up at night. So don't be concerned if they sort of underreact to your work in this way. They should still know that you're going to do it. You might find later they're very impressed with your work and they come back to you and say, how did you do that? That's actually been my experience, is that after the fact, after I worked very hard on something with my team and made big improvements, then they're interested because they want to share it with other customers they have. So, but they should know. All right. I can't think of any other vendors to tell. Maybe in your industry, it would make sense to tell some other vendors. You'd have to think carefully about that. But I think it is important to think about, and again, maybe in your strategy meeting with your group, you can talk about, are there other vendors who should know? And how do we want to put that to them, and what are the pros and cons there? Your board, of course, should know. That's the same as with the bank. It's going to make you look very good. So there's no downside there. They may say, well, is it so bad you have to pay this much attention to it and so forth? And you can simply say, I don't like it. I'm unhappy with where that number is. My research has shown that we're sort of middle of the pack with our competitors. We'd rather lead the pack, or whatever it is you want to say. There are a lot of ways to put that, but I think the board would be very supportive and not really argue that point. So that is another group of stakeholders to share the information with. So we've talked about employees, we've talked about a board, we've talked about vendors, and now we've gotten to customers. So you may feel that this is the last thing I want to share with my customers. It makes us look vulnerable. and I don't want to look vulnerable to my customers. Now, I agree with that. I don't want you to look vulnerable in the sense of like going out of business vulnerable. But on the other hand, customers want to do business with organizations that know how to run their business. And you taking care of this with purpose, with attention, shows you know how to run your business. So here's an example of how I would talk to customers about it. First of all, this is not something you send out in a letter or anything like that. In fact, you heard I didn't say that with any of these. These are all one-to-one, face-to-face meetings you're having with people and discussing with them. Except maybe, again, aligning your strategic plan. Okay, fine. But with customers, I would actually bring it up when I'm working with a customer, either on the receivables with them or with customers where I'm developing my relationship. And I would see, is this time to talk about, one of the reasons we're really such a good partner for you is we have an extremely solid foundation, solid financial foundation. We're not going to call you and be gone. So when we have a contract with you, you can count on us that we're going to be there for the long haul. And part of that is we pay a lot of attention to our accounts receivable. We're very pleased to report that we have one of the best accounts receivable agings in the industry. So you might wait and bring this up when you've made a lot of progress. If you're working with a customer where you need the money from them, I would simply say, again, as part of a larger conversation, in order for us to be the best vendor for you, we have to take care of this. Our biggest expense is payroll. I'm throwing that out there because usually that is the biggest expense. We've already paid our people. So we need to clean this up. We need to address it or whatever else is going on. How can we work together on this? So I've gone into more detail on that end of it in the video dealing with in-person visits. But the point is, once you've made progress, it's definitely something to share with customers if it makes sense when you're meeting with them. So they also feel, wow, this is a vendor I can count on. They take their business seriously. They're not goofing around. I know if I'm late, I hear from somebody there very nicely but firmly. So I can rely on them. So this is really about you having the face of a serious business person, someone who means what they say, who's going to be there, who's going to be reliable, not only in the service you're providing, but in continuing to exist. After all, if you have a contract with someone and you go out of business, you've really left them in the lurch. So this is something to share with customers on a very thoughtful basis. You'd have to think, what is this meeting about? Is this a time to introduce this or not? How or not? And again, please watch that other video. But you can see that when you're talking about this with all of these stakeholders, and when your head of sales is talking about it with stakeholders, and your accounts receivable clerk is talking about it to her counterparts in the other businesses and saying, this is how we do business. This is how we honor our commitments. Look at the energy created around collecting receivables and how it makes you look as an organization. It makes you look strong and together. And when people are saying this, your employees to other people outside, they're feeling pride in the organization as well. So it's going to help them, again, come back and bring good information to your group, your working group. It's going to help them collect the money. It's going to help everyone feel good about working for you. So it's really, that communication is really a way to accelerate the process so very much. So think carefully about your communication strategy, something again to talk about with your people. Experiment in small ways, see how it goes, see how you feel about it, how other people feel about it. You'll be really, really pleased, I believe. And if you want my specific help for your business, I'd love to help you. You can contact me at strategicreceivables.com. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.